and I was down at the lake and ran up here to get all set up, and then realized I forgot my headphones, so I had to run back. For my screen now, I started off with, I figured we'd just start off with a checkmate in one puzzle. And let me make sure we have the notation there. And wait a second, something's not right here. YouTube thing. I'm just trying to keep an eye on everybody's comments if you are joining us from YouTube. Okay, and then I have a comment from somebody here. I haven't even looked at the move yet, but yes, so nice job. I'm not sure who's here as Betsy, but that's perfect notation. So well done on that one. So you can go ahead and send me, oh, Jackson, okay, awesome. And let me know also if you happen to be somebody that doesn't want me mentioning whether you're getting the right answer or not, just let me know. Try to respect your privacy in that regard. From YouTube, hello. I don't see who's actually there, but I see that there is somebody there. You can also comment from there. So I do see what we have. It looks like Leroy, hello. A checkmate in a single move. I've got one correct answer here, and I'm going to try to bring up another puzzle. If you're aware, but with Zoom, if you're joining me from Zoom, you can actually write on the screen. If you go to the top of the share screen, there should be an annotate option. And I can actually, this first one, I'm actually just going to go ahead and write the notation for it. I can actually go to annotate, and then I can go to text, and then I can put a box in. I think, what are we seeing? We're only seeing part of the screen, so I guess I got to write it on the screen here. So put a box here, and then I can say capital Q to, that's another way you can express it to somebody with the green arrow there. Hashtag is the way that we normally express it, or as Jackson expressed it, you can also do plus plus. So instead of checkmate with the hashtag, you can go plus plus. That's another way of writing that correctly. Okay. Let's go on to another mate and one. Oh, we actually need to play the move. That would help. So yeah, protected by the rook. There's no way to move. That is, in fact, checkmate. So queen to f7 is mate. This is going to be a mate in one. And if you want to try some other type of puzzles or look at something different, just let me know. A mate in a single move. And you can send me a private message. You can, so ideally what I'd like to see is notation. So correct, Jackson, nicely done. So I'm going to bring up another puzzle. So Jackson nailed it right off the back, perfect notation and all. So I am going to bring up another puzzle. I'll put it over there on the screen here in a second. I'll have to reshare, but while the rest of you think about that one. Jackson, yeah, the second time was correct. The first one, you just wrote check. Yeah, so if you just put a plus sign, that's just check. If you use a hashtag, or if you don't have a hashtag, then you can use the you can just you can just use the plus plus. Yeah, so Ignatius, you nailed it. Leroy, I think, I'm sorry, you can't even see the notation. I'm gonna mention that you're on the wrong file, but I didn't have the file on there. So it's not the E file, it is F7. So it is knight capture, so NX F7, and that is checkmate again. No place for the king to move, and he can't capture the piece. There's no way out. Another puzzle up this time for those of you who get this fast. I almost have this one. I'll make it should be a whoops. Here, sorry. I'll shrink it down over here first. Ignatius, you nailed it right off. Jackson, you nailed it right off. This one is going to be checkmate in 2. So you have to write white move, black move, white move in order to get this one right. That's not quite small enough yet, is it? Let me see if I can make it a little bit smaller. Something a little bit tougher on the other board too now. It seems like you guys are all pretty bright. Let me double check to make sure I don't have anybody. Is there anybody trying to get in here? So I got Ignatius, Leroy. Now, hello, Henry. Let me get that up there. And then side. Hi. Good to see you. So I got somebody from Hong Kong visiting on YouTube. That's cool. Nice. Over there. Oh, you only see one board. Yeah, I goofed up on that. Good call. Let me bring the other board up. So I need to do a new share. Go the whole desktop. My whole iPad, I should say. Okay, I need to get this off. Okay, there's a new puzzle on the board. The one on the left is a mate in 2. The one on the right is a mate in 1. So the one with the green square is mate in 1. So I'm looking for ideal, or I would ideally like you to do proper notation. And you can do that by just like sending me a text, or you should have the option to annotate, and then you could draw text. That's another option. So this first puzzle, I'm going to go ahead and solve. The one on the right is actually simply capital Q to H4, and then that's checkmate. So we do the hashtag symbol like that. So QH4 is the answer for that one, as several of you got. And it looks like Jackson's got the right answer. You can actually do this a couple different ways. Ignatius is on the right track. That's not the full notation for it. Oh, and then, I see the final move is down there again. So what is it? Ignatius and Jackson have the correct answer for the second one. I'm going to go on to a different puzzle here on this one. I got to drag it over to my other screen to get it set up though. Oops. Come here. Selected to show you guys that it is checkmate. That is checkmate like that, but okay. I'm going to bring up another tactic for this other puzzle while you guys think about the mate in 2. Oh yes, so Leroy, that was the right answer, except for it's not check, it was checkmate. So you'd use a hashtag or double prompt in this new puzzle that I'm just about to bring up before you says white to play and win the black queen in with my screen here. Okay. Answer here too. So looks like several of us have answered the other one. I'm going to move on this one. So again, it's mate in, or not mate, sorry. It's white to play and win the queen on the puzzle with the green squares. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what I'm hoping for as far as your answers. Now, you can just send this to me in a private message would be the best. But you could also, type it on the screen here or use an arrow, depending on what you can accomplish as far as expressing yourself. Like I said, ideally, I want you to type it to me, but yeah. Queen captures, what is that? It would be black's move, and black would be forced to play rook captures e8, which is not check. And white would play, I guess I should put another comma, and white would play, in this case, rook captures e8, and then that is checkmate. And you could play rook captures e8 check first. That would also work. So you could play either way here. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. I was trying to move it on YouTube. That's not going to work. Okay, so you could, let me get my mouse back. You could move the rook and capture first, or you can do the more flamboyant, crazy thing and sacrifice your queen, and that is in fact checkmate. Okay. This has answered the other one. This one's fair. This one should be a little easier. The one on the left is a checkmate in a single move. So that might be a little bit easier for some of you, although it's pretty tough to see the notation. You almost have to have the board memorized to actually know the notation for that move. Seems like sometimes I end up seeing the comments after the fact. I don't know what all messages are visible. Okay, so nobody's saying anything on YouTube. That's really ugly, actually. Yeah, so Ignatius, that's correct for the puzzle on the left. How about the puzzle on the right? I think I've only had Jackson. Oh, wait. But our rook is on e6, so I think maybe we're mixing up the ranks and files a little bit, or the files anyway. Yeah, that's the correct answer. Yep. So we would play. This is like removing the defender tactic. So we see that we'd like to play a powerful fork here. It'd be nice to play knight to f7 check, forking the king and the queen. But of course, the knight is guarding it. So we can just capture that knight, and now we can play that devastating fork, and we should be able to win this game. We'll probably want to try to keep our pawn alive. Probably want to defend it with our bishop or something like that. I don't know. I might play something like this. Oh no, that's not a good move. I shouldn't have done that. So now I lose my I lose my knight, but I still should be able to work my way over there. I should have taken my time on that. Okay, and then this one over here is just simply capital R to A1, rook to A1 would be the answer to that one. Let me move on to this next puzzle on this one. So again, on the right, we're doing removing the defender as the tactic. So I always say that we should consider all checks. We need to consider captures, loose and semi-loose pieces, and this is an example of that essentially. And let's get a better puzzle over here. So yeah, just rook to A1. But it's basically like a back rank checkmate. And this puzzle on the left, believe it or not, is essentially the same thing. I think it's checkmate in, let's see, 1, 2, 3 moves, the puzzle on the left. But it's the same idea. It's like a back rank checkmate, kind of like what we just saw, although that last one was on the side. Jackson, that's correct. Correct also from Jackson have the puzzle on the right. No answers so far. The puzzle on the left. Whoops. I'm able to hook my iPad up to my computer now. So actually, what I'm showing you guys, I have on my iPad, so that when you're saying something to me, or your pictures are up here in front of me. So I'm looking up at the screen usually. Okay. One on the right, or one on the left, I think. Check. Yeah, so you, Ignatius, you got the one on the left. That notation written up there still. That's not for this one. One on the right here while I have my mouse. So the bishop is defending the rook. It's a semi-loose piece, the rook. The rook on c3 here is semi-loose because it's guarded by the bishop, but it's attacked by the king. Semi-loose pieces are always of interest. A piece that's guarded and attacked the same number of times. And because of that, we can actually go ahead and capture the bishop. We sacrifice a bishop, but we win a rook. So, and removing the defender is the idea here on the right, and it's back rank checkmate is the idea on the left, the one with the brownish squares. And so Jack, right answer with perfect notation on this first one. Okay. Okay. So Jackson, oh yeah, Jackson must be looking at the one on the right. I haven't even looked at it. So you're seeing. I think you're on the right track. Here, it's a little tricky. It ends up being a back rank checkmate. Let me click on it so we can see it better. So it ends up being kind of a back rank checkmate. And the back rank checkmate, you know, it's where the king is kind of blocked in by his own pawns. So we need to come up with some sort of way to have the king behind a couple of his pawns. And that's why we have to play this kind of initial move to drive the king into the right position. So to Evan, I can't even see the notation, but it's good for us. It's the same on both sides. We're looking at white, so you can, you know, substitute. But checking move, and that forces the king back. And oops, I wanted to do a comma. Can sacrifice the queen. Actually, we can play. Oh wait, so that forces the king back. So king h. play queen. It's crazy. We're sacrificing our wonderful queen because they can simply play bishop takes f8, but then we can play rook captures. That is checkmate. And you always want to consider every check and what happens when you play a checking move. And so we can play this check, and that forces the king back, and now we can sacrifice, and we have this back rank checkmate formation. Okay. Here on the left, it's a special checkmate called a hookmate because it kind of looks like a hook. So checkmate is a single move of the puzzle on the left. The puzzle on the right, again, is removing the defender puzzle. And it actually is checkmate in 2 moves. You have forced checkmate in 2 moves. I think Jackson is the only one to answer that one correctly so far. Oh, wait. No. The right answer. Okay. That's essentially the right answer. But specific with that final move because there's 2 pieces that can do that final move. I don't know if you're aware of how you make that distinction. You have to kind of say which one you're talking about. Okay. Way of doing it. Mm-hmm. So or not, Ignatius, that's correct. And Jackson, yeah, that's a hookmate. That's the hookmate. Nicely done. Reveal the answer on this other one here in just a moment. The one on the right with the green. I'm going to go ahead and write that up here in a moment. The answer. You always want to consider checking moves. You know, not every check is fantastic, but some checking moves are downright magical in their power, like mind-blowing how powerful they actually end up being. And this queen F5 check is one of those powerful checks. So we can sacrifice the queen. Of course, they're just going to play, I don't know, queen or rook captures. What are they going to use? Maybe they, I don't know. They say they could capture with their queen. They are going to play, and this is what I was saying. One of my students, I wanted him to be more specific. There's 2 different rooks here that can go to this square G7. So I have to say rook G, or in his case, he wrote 1. That's fine too. You could say 1 or 8 to differentiate between them. But well, wait, actually, no. We have to say G. Nice. No, he's got it. Rook 1 to. That's the only way to write it. So very good, Jackson. So this is a sequence. So we're able to go ahead and sacrifice, and let me know if I goof up on something so I can point it out so people don't get the wrong idea. So they used the queen instead. Like they could have captured the rook as well, I think, but then that is checkmate. We'll maybe do one more of these removing the defender puzzles. So this is a more classical example. And I think I've only had, okay, so Ignatius got the right answer. Jackson's got the right answer. Leroy, me. If you want, with you should under annotate, you could even use arrows. Although I think all you gentlemen know how to write notation. Maybe you're not sure how to type. You should be able to just click on. Okay, no problem. Not a problem at all. One on the right, the hook checkmate. I'm going to go ahead and express the notation here in just a moment. It's really good to be able to do this notation. Well, be able to talk about it in this style. So it's rook to e8 is checkmate. This being able to express it like this enables you to write it down, to record your games, and as you memorize these coordinates, it helps you visualize the game to the point where you can even start playing some games blindfolded once you've done enough of it. I've actually come to chess without even looking at the board. Okay. This one on the left is quite a bit more challenging, but it is again that hook checkmate. Now let's back up actually a second here. Will it let me just back up directly? I just go right back. Express the puzzle we just saw. Let me make this one a little bit bigger first. And so notice how the pawn is actually guarding the knight here, and then the rook comes over and by the knight. That's the hook, you know. So with a rook there, they're saying it kind of looks like a hook, and that's what we're looking up on this next much more complicated puzzle. It's definitely I think this one is checkmate in 3 moves. So I'm going to go back to that. White to play and checkmate in 3 moves. Hopefully I can shrink. Trying for the one on the right. Right, rook. Oh yeah, so right. I don't want to read that out loud, but yes, Ignatius. Perfect, notatious. There is no HG, but I think I know what you're talking about. Just got the correct answer. Jackson, yeah, Jackson's got the correct answer. Nicely done. Doing this rather tough mate in 3. Let me see. So that's cool. Yes, yes. You nailed it. You got that down. 4 doesn't work because of en passant. So pretty cool to have an example like that. So somebody said we could just play this move F4. Well, I think that would be checkmate if it wasn't for that special move en passant, which I'm pretty sure everybody in the classroom actually, I'm pretty sure I talked to all of you about that one. But you know, it's a vague move. We don't see it very often, but they can actually capture with this pawn. So if you jump up 2 squares, they can actually play pawn captures F3 EP en passant. So that would not be checkmate. To highlight actually, so the big is actually right here of that hook. Okay, they're the ones that are going to be involved in the checkmate. Not that you need that help, Ignatius, nicely done, but oh, wait. Jackson, nicely done. So mate in 3 moves, and usually when you're solving a mate in 3, I'd say it's over 95, 97% of the time it's going to be check, check, checkmate. If you're solving a puzzle and it says mate in 3, very few puzzles are actually going to be, you know, where you play a quiet move and it leads to a mate in 3. Rook G7, the king can actually move to F4 because of the pawn on G3. So king to or rook to G7, which is right, but the king can't move to F4 because of the pawn. It's easier on myself. Let me double check Ignatius's notation. I had to copy it rather than look away. Type. How to send it to everyone. Good, right. Which is a checking move. And of course, the bishop is forced to capture, but then we have this other rook to play the same move. And now with the defense of the knight, you know, as I mentioned, the hook is down here, the knight defended, which is important by the pawn, which guards the rook when he captures. And that is, again, checkmate. Again, the hook mate on the left. So relatively complicated. Yeah, Leroy, you got it too? Yep. It wouldn't have been rook G7 checkmate. It's rook G7, then they play rook G6 blocking, and then rook takes G6 is checkmate. Okay. Go ahead and come up with something else on this other side. I'm going to pull it back. And a new puzzle, the one with the green squares, is overworked pieces. And so one of White's pieces is overworked. Definition overworked is a piece that is guarding against two or more immediate threats at the same time. So you have two or more, you know, in this case, White has two pieces that are under threat. We're threatening to capture them. And it's the same white piece that is guarding both of them for the green puzzle here. So which white piece is, first of all, the question that I have for you. So not looking for the best move here necessarily. I would like to identify first who is the overworked piece for White, and then, you know, if you prefer, continue to think situation. On the left, it's White to move and do this hook mate in three moves. Yes, so that's the correct piece, Ignatius. Awesome. So go ahead and think. So you've identified a flaw in White's position. They've got a weakness. You've identified there's an overworked piece. How do you take advantage? And these can be tricky. You have to think about it. Maybe this one's not as tricky as some of the other ones, but you do have to weigh things out in order to make the right capture. So which capture? You can just give me Ignatius the correct capture, and Jackson, that is the right move sequence as well. You want to, I mentioned before that you want to keep an eye on loose and semi-loose pieces. And so this is not really semi-loose. An important thing to note, because it makes a difference in this situation, because it's guarded by the queen and the knight. So a lot of times I'll have people that'll sack their rook here and they'll play rook to take a bishop. Well, they can just play knight takes. They don't have to play queen takes, so that doesn't work. But the knight is a semi-loose piece. It's only guarded by the queen. So we can actually go ahead and capture that night. And oops, why isn't it coming with me? Hey, I can still not responding. We'll respond on this one. So that one's working. All right, let's go back over here. Oh, that's right. Okay. So I forgot this puzzle actually doesn't, it doesn't allow us to move it. But yeah, the correct sequence here is to actually capture the bishop first. They were just asking who was the overworked piece, and it was in fact the queen. But I'd like to add an extra layer to that, make it a little bit more interesting. I'll get Heart off the board here in a second. I'll try to get our other puzzle refocused. Sorry, I didn't see if anybody has commented on this. Kind of like a removing defender and an overworked piece at the same time. So again, we have overworked piece on the right. Let me get that notation squared away so you can actually see the coordinates, because we are looking at it from Black's perspective and on the right. And we're thinking about it from White's perspective on the left. So it's a mate in 3 on the left with the hook mate that we saw before. And I'm going to go ahead and just show you where the hook is, which you may have already figured this out. You probably did. I'm just going to put it anyway because I like putting hearts on things, I guess. So the knight has a heart, and so does the pawn. So that's part of that formation that forms that checkmate. Jackson, and that's perfect notation. The king could actually go the other direction as well, but that's perfect. So yeah, it looks like only Jackson has answered the puzzle on the left. The puzzle on the right, so it's not a checkmate, and it's difficult to see the overworked piece because it's not a capturing move. It has to do with the king being so exposed. You know, if you have an opponent that's king is that exposed, boy, you should be salivating. Yeah. I mean, they got their king out in the open right where you want them. You're going after mate here, but there's no forced checkmate here, but you can basically force White to give up their queen to prevent you from mating them. So there's a white piece that's overworked because it's guarding against 2 checkmate threats. If it wasn't for this white piece, so on the puzzle on the right, we're looking for, who is the overworked piece on the white puzzle, first of all. And this overworked piece, because this is a kind of a complicated one, I'm going to tell you, it's guarding against, like, if this one piece wasn't there, there would be 2 different ways you could checkmate. And so one way would be an instant checkmate, and the other one would be a mate in 2. But this one piece is guarding against both of those threats on the board on the right, the one with the green squares. The one on the left, we're looking for a hook mate in 3 moves, and Ignatius has got it right. But, oh, and I didn't erase those. I don't have those on there. Okay, my YouTube stream is lagging big time. Hopefully it'll be better when I go back to my house. I'm actually in Michigan right now, working on a house, trying to fix up a house. My connection. Comment from you. Connected. Anybody there? Hello, hello. So Jackson. Oh, it isn't check. Um, oh, wait. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong puzzle. Okay, so Jackson, we already solved that one. You were trying to answer the other one. Okay. You that is the overworked piece. So Ignatius is the only one that identified the overworked piece. So you're on the right track. So the first thing that you want to try to do on this puzzle on the right is identify the overworked piece. So one of White's pieces, if it wasn't on the board, there'd be two different ways you could checkmate as Black, excuse me. Black could play a checkmate in one if it wasn't for this one piece. And he could also force into the other way. It still would be a win of the queen. Pawn on F2, that is the overworked piece. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight that here. So yep. So somebody just pointed to it. So that pawn is overworked, and we're not going to play queen takes F2. That's not the move we're looking for. But what pawn doing? You know, why is that pawn overworked? What do you play here to take advantage of the fact that that pawn is trying to do too much here? Let's look at checking moves. What do we play? Yeah, so Jackson, you got that's the right move. And Ignatius, yes, that's the right move. So we got to play that move first. And if they capture our rook with the pawn, then we just checkmate them, right? So if they capture, let's go ahead and clear this. So it's actually rook. So as a couple of you have mentioned, it is rook e3 check. That's how we take advantage here. Oh, and they're not even, darn it. Again, they're not going to have us play it. But yeah, so we play rook to e3 here, and they can't capture with the pawn, because if they do, then nobody's guarding this g3 square, and the queen can just move of g3, and that would be checkmate. So yeah, it is the pawn on f2 that is the overworked piece. Click on it. Okay. So this is a pretty powerful tactic if you're playing against somebody that doesn't know this exists, which a lot of amateur players don't even know this tactic of overworked pieces exists. So again, somewhat of a complicated puzzle here on the right, but it's this idea of an overworked piece. So you're looking at Black's position, and you need to think, well, you always want to consider checks, captures, loose and semi-loose pieces. So semi-loose pieces, it's a piece that's attacked and defended the same number of times. And as you kind of assess these things, you should notice things, and hopefully something comes to your mind. You notice that somebody's got too much going on here as White. They've got an issue with their position. And then I'm going to go ahead and just reveal the answer here on the right or the left. It's actually, and several of you have already said, we sacrifice the queen here because, well, it's a hook mate. A hook mate is done with a rook, a knight, and a pawn. And now we can go ahead and check. And no matter which direction he moved, even if he would have moved to d7, then this would have been checkmate, but he moved the other way. And this is the hook mate, the knight covering that square. Now we've moved on to Anastasia's mate, which if you feel like looking it up on Wikipedia, Anastasia's mate has a specific checkmate pattern. I encourage you to try to work these checkmate patterns into your repertoire. You know them. You start seeing them on the board in different forms. Like, this is almost an Anastasia's mate. All I need to do is push my pawn up or whatever. You have to do some little thing, and then I'm all ready for the Anastasia's mate. You can make it happen on the board if you have them in your mind. If the name just helps you kind of keep a file, and then you have that there, you can then create it on the board because you know of it. Okay. Mate in one, and a couple of you already nailed it, so nice job there. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that because we're running low on time anyway. So that is the mate in one, and this is the form of the Anastasia's mate here. Notice, I'm going to go ahead and put it back, but the knight is covering those squares. This is crucial that the knight is in this position covering those escape squares. It makes it kind of like a back rank or a side rank checkmate. We saw that side rank checkmate earlier, but now with that knight guarding, that ends up being checkmate. There's no way for the king to escape. Notice again, since the hearts are already there, the knight's already covering those squares, and now it is mate in two moves, the puzzle on the left, and we still have the overworked piece scenario, and yes, you are correct, Ignatius, that is the overworked piece. So once you've identified the overworked piece, then it's not cut and dried simple. There's no formula for discovering how to proceed after you identify the overworked piece. But then you can usually uncover it with just knowing what the overworked piece is, and then considering captures and checks and whatnot. I think your coordinate is off there, Ignatius. I don't think you mean that square. I think you're on the, oh yes, you did write it. I'm sorry. I see now that you wrote the right square. That is the correct move, and that's a devastating move. And it's just because you identified that piece is overworked. There's no way they can deal with that other threat. They've got too much business going on somewhere else. So nicely done, Ignatius. Is a overworked piece scenario. So first of all, we should just identify which white piece is defending against two or more immediate threats at the same time. Not just two or more pieces, not guarding two pieces that are just out there, guarding pieces that are under attack, or making, guarding against threats like even checkmate. Maybe you have a piece that's preventing a back rank checkmate or something like that. Well, then that piece can't also guard your bishop or something like that. You can't guard the bishop and defend against bishop, the checkmate, usually at the same time. Okay, left. Yes, nicely done, Ignatius, for the puzzle on the left. So yeah, it's the Anastasia's mate again. So the knight's already covering those two squares that we had hearts on earlier. So we're just creating that same position. We've got our rook in place to play that final move, so we can just go ahead and sacrifice. So check, and then checkmate, mate in two. In this iteration now, this is mate in three, but it's the same basic idea. Hopefully you can see it easily. I think I only had one student answer this puzzle on the right. So we're still trying to identify the overworked piece. So this overworked piece is concerned about king safety as well. So the other ones we've seen, well, I guess we did see another one with king safety. So a lot of times you're defending multiple pieces at the same time, but yeah, it can be an aspect of king safety as well, as we saw in the one with the pawn on F2. More drawn out, so it's a checkmate in three moves. Those of you who answered the previous ones, you can just write the first move if you want, and I think I'll know that you're on the right track since you wrote the other answers previously. Ignatius wrote the whole thing out. Cool. Well done. It's a really good skill to learn this notation. You get to the point where, so sometimes you're in a situation, especially at higher levels, where you can actually get distracted by what's on the board. You're trying to imagine a couple moves down. So this is me. Imagine I'm in a game and I'm under some pressure, and you can like say, okay, if I play this move, then they're going to do this. Okay, so that piece is over there, and that piece is there, and then then I could play this move, and then they have to play this move, and so you try to visualize that in your head, and it's easier to start holding those things in your head if you know exactly where G5 is. You know where D7 is. These are like just a part of your landscape, essentially, once you've done enough of this notation and writing notation and writing your move. You know that first move is knight to f3, or well, not first move, but that first knight jump. It just, you get a feel from the board, and it makes it easier for you to visualize the board without even, you don't have to look at it. Then you can see the future easier, future of the chessboard. Okay, so here, this Anastasia's mate, we're just going to go ahead and get our knight in that position where he's covering those two squares, and then we can go ahead and play the queen sack, and then the Anastasia's mate, the classic Anastasia's mate. And this is the same idea. So is lined up here, so we can go ahead and sacrifice, and then again you have, whoops, then again you have the Anastasia's mate. This is a new puzzle. I think this is called the blind swine mate. The blind swine mate is this puzzle on the left. So it's white to play in checkmate in 1, 2, I think it's 3. That's 1, 2, 3 moves. Yeah. And then I think I only had one person identify the overworked piece on the right. So, but I'm going to go ahead and just get ready to kind of close out for the day anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and show. So the overworked piece is the queen. You got to consider every capture. We could play rook captures knight. On the surface, that looks like not a great move. I mean, trading our rook for a knight, not so good. What other captures can we make? We could capture a pawn here and there. Oh, our knight and our queen are both threatening on G7. That's interesting. That's a checking move. Who's guarding that pawn? Well, the king is, but if it was only the king, then queen takes G2 would be checkmate. That's very interesting. But the queen is defending it. Well, she's already got a job. She's guarding the knight over here. So actually, this is really devastating for white. I would hate to be in their position because you can actually play rook captures C3 and they can't capture your back. In fact, they have to run with their queen. They've got to run with their queen somewhere, and they've got to stay somewhere on this rank. So they've got to go maybe here, or they've got to go back over here to B2, or they've got to go over here because they got to maintain their vigil on this G2 pawn. So pretty devastating. So not only will you take the knight, but then you can take the bishop on the very next move, and they can't do anything about it. It's just kind of funny. So yeah. All right. So last puzzle here, this one on the right, we'll go ahead and solve this one and call it a day. And also let me know if how this day works for you, if there's another day that works for you. I'm going to send out an email and kind of get a consensus from people what days and what topics we could go over. If there's specific things we want to talk about, please let me know. Okay, so yeah, we're back to this only one puzzle now. So white to play in checkmate in 3 moves. Most days work fine. Awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty open too. I mean, especially this time, which I think it's, roughly, well, I guess it's almost 6 o'clock for you guys. I'm actually in Michigan, so it's almost 9 o'clock. But yeah. Like this, feel free to, speak up if you have a question, or if you can't hear me, please let me know if there's some sort of issue with the audio, or, I've got a dog doing something in the background. Hopefully, well, when I get back home, I'll have my office, and I probably won't be doing the virtual background. But go ahead and reveal this line swine made it's actually pretty, from this perspective, it's not too obscure, because it's just all checking moves. So just check and then checkmate. And you can check this out on livechess.org. So I recommend, if you don't have livechess.org, it is free. You have to use some sort of email to sign up, but then you can just go, so livechess.org, you go to learn, and then you can go to, learn, and then practice is where we went. And then I was just doing, I think, checkmate patterns 1. And you have all these different checkmate patterns you can work on. And there's also, there's a bunch of other iterations of it. We get checkmate patterns 1, there's checkmate patterns 4. So they have a bunch of different ones. And I think it's really healthy for your mind to just have those checkmate patterns stored away. They're resources for you to create checkmates on the board. You can create situations. If you have like this repertoire, yeah, I think you know what word I'm trying to say, of tools that you can use, then you can create more chaos for your opponent. Okay. All right, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. For next week, we'll do the same time. And then perhaps the following we might change and do some other time, but I'll send an email if that happens. But yeah, next week is going to be at 5 o'clock as well. And please tell your friends or anybody else that might be interested in chess. And yeah, if you have a particular topic you want to talk about in chess, please let me know. I'm actually going to be posting a video on space here pretty soon on my YouTube channel. I'm working on it right now. And so we can actually also talk about space. If it turns out you'd rather talk about space than chess some days, and everybody agrees on that, that's certainly something we can do. Or maybe we can play chess in space sometime. I don't know, that'll work. Okay, anyway, thank you. Have a good week, all. Yeah, it looks like I'm sitting on the International Space Station. That's the idea anyway. All right, thank you all, and good night.